The US never fired a shot, yet 3 submarines were cornered in 8 minutes. This isn't a sink the carrier story, it's the collapse of an assumption. Venezuelan Type 2. 09 crews believed radio silence erased intent. Above the surface, routine traffic. Below it, a patient hunt. But modern detection is built from tiny data points and context, not a single sonar hit. In this video, you'll see how air patrols, surface sonar, dipping helicopters, and an unseen American sub constrained every route, depth, and speed. Until there was only one move left: surface. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. They trained to vanish behind routine. The crews practiced low-speed runs along merchant lanes, trimmed every vibration, and waited for the right carrier schedule. 18 months of notes filled with transit windows, maintenance pauses, and weather breaks told them when to move. They believed the ocean would carry them like freight. Unnoticed, unremarkable, and unrecorded. The ocean did record them, not with noise, but with behavior. Water displaced by a steel hull does not forget right away. It bends, lingers, and marks time. 3 Type 2. 09s left their harbors with that plan. They slipped under thermal layers and matched traffic streams where bulk carriers and tankers made steady tracks. Radio silence held. Batteries cycled at night, charging on the margins. Motors turning just enough to keep up with slow commercial flows. From the bridge of a passing ship, nothing stood out. Under the surface, a ledger formed in small entries. Even without a ping, a submarine moves water in a way a current model can test. In narrow channels and constrained approaches, the math notices. You see recurring velocity shears, thin ribbons where the flow shifts by a few centimeters per second, then repeats at intervals that mirror a 209's length and speed. Density fields tilt. Microturbulence tails fade slower than they should for the conditions. None of it screams submarine. Each piece just says something is off in the same way, in the same places, again and again. Passive networks listen for that kind of persistence. Long-range acoustic arrays sit on the edge of hearing, pulling structure out of low-frequency ocean noise. Seabed sensors watch the background hum that storms, shipping, and marine life create. Hydrophones don't chase a clean tone. They sift for patterns that don't fit the baseline. When a hull changes depth under a layer, the low-end texture of the water shifts. Sweep enough of it into a model, and you see a path without ever tagging a boat by name. Predictive tools learn the habits around the boats as much as the boats themselves. Harbor rhythms matter. Who sails just after midnight? Who always delays for a tide? How long a diesel-electric sits pierside after refueling? And how that lines up with known battery endurance at creeping speeds. Fold in the tidal gates that make certain channels efficient at certain hours, and a corridor starts to appear. It isn't a dot on a chart. It's a set of times and places where the odds stack up. Up top, patrol aircraft sweep wide arcs. They aren't hunting periscopes. They're mapping the sea against yesterday's sea. Surface temperatures roll a degree different for a few kilometers where there shouldn't be mixing. Wake microturbulence shows up in narrow bands where traffic reports say no hull passed. Reflections off the seabed return out of pattern because a layer above them was stirred in a way the forecast did not predict. All of that flows into fusion systems built to weigh the odds. The Venezuelan plan assumed that silence and shadows were enough. The US network treated the water like a sensor and the calendar like a cue sheet. No single sensor needed to be right on its own. A dozen weak signals, aligned in time and place, built a trail strong enough to trust. That is the reveal the water gave. Intent can be inferred when behavior bends physics the same way over and over. The trap does not spring with a weapon. It tightens with timing. So watch how that probability trail becomes a shrinking box. The 8-minute question starts with quiet geometry. With the approach corridors forecast, US ships shifted without fanfare. Destroyers slowed to cut their own noise and tightened passive patterns so bearings grew cleaner with each turn. P-8 patrols stretched their legs, laying broad arcs that fed fresh ocean behavior back to the models. MH-60R crews idled on the margins of the lanes, ready to lower a transducer, lift, slide, and repeat. And below them all, a US submarine held an offset trail, far enough to avoid a mutual detection spiral, close enough to cue timing when the edges began to close. On the surface, Nothing looked unusual. Tankers kept their schedules, and the destroyers' track lines matched legal traffic separation schemes. That normal picture lulled the Venezuelan captains into routine adjustments. 5 degrees to port to hold a thermal gradient, a 2-meter depth change to keep battery draw even, a small speed bump to drift clear of a predicted eddy. Each small choice pushed fresh data into the fusion engines. Each tiny correction updated the tree of likely futures. Where they thought they were peeling away from attention, they were painting sharper boundaries around themselves. The box forms by removing the safest exits first. Layered sensors carve off the low-risk paths, the slow, quiet lanes that keep power consumption steady and flow noise low. Once those lanes get flagged by probability, the crews must choose worse options. A little more speed to outrun a bearing, a deeper dive that crosses a layer and raises the acoustic floor. Every defensive move satisfies a different constraint but opens a louder signature. And the model sees the trade. Destroyers played the angles. They avoided abrupt accelerations, let the ocean carry them, and used planned turns to tighten bearing lines without telegraphing a firm contact. Passive tracks stayed refined, not declared. The goal wasn't a single proud solution. It was a networked confidence that shoved the safest branch of the decision tree off the board. The sound room had patience. Every degree of course change added a sliver of clarity. Helicopters added the metronome. MH-60R crews dipped on a cadence that looked like routine checks to anyone watching. Down for seconds. Up, slide a short distance, down again. Each dip skimmed a probability cell, confirming or clearing. They never hammered one spot. They walked the funnel forward, letting doubt do the rest. No loud prosecutions. No patterns that screamed, "We have you." Just enough confirmations to tighten the math. The silent partner below all of this kept the cadence from breaking. The US submarine didn't press into the cone where counter-detection would spark a duel. It held an offset, feeding timing cues into the stack so the surface moves arrived just as a Venezuelan boat crossed a layer or rolled into a course change. By the 5th minute, the safe lanes no longer existed. A speed-up meant cavitation risk against the layer. A climb meant crossing into helo-dip patterns. A turn meant renewed bearings from 2 destroyers that had already tuned their own noise out of the picture. Decision time arrived without a single weapon armed. Battery margins tightened as life support, sensors, and maneuvering competed for the same volts. Movement carried a price in noise and power. Stillness carried a price in certainty. The exits had crept behind them. Each Venezuelan captain faced a harsh choice: accept a high-probability exposure while submerged, or surface and preserve the crew. They surfaced. What followed wasn't damage, it was doubt. Longer port stays, delayed patrols, and missions that slipped quietly off the calendar while the ocean kept listening.